everyone to the weekly social. I gotta close the door. Forgot to do that. Hold on. Wait, make sure it works. Pretty sure it works. Welcome everyone to the weekly social. Richard is not here today because he's sick, but that's okay. I'm his replacement, and Priscilla is sick as well. But today we have Michelle Bratcher with Select Title.
Hi. So we're going to do our best to fill in for these people that are just all of everything.
I know. That's what it is this time of year. But yeah, oh my gosh, my hair. Jeez. There we go. Does that look better?
Okay. You're good.
Okay.
You're good.
Alrighty. So I want to ask you some questions. You're an escrow officer with Select Title here.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain the role of an escrow officer in a real estate transaction? Just kind of a little summary of it, right? So
Yes.
people can understand your role, right?
So from kind of the beginning to the end, the agents bring the contracts to us. Who the title company is chosen by, it's really between the seller and buyer, but the agents make a lot of those choices as well. Mm-hmm. So they bring the contract to us. Our responsibility is gathering all the information. Our title plant runs the title reports, making sure that everything is good with the property itself, what liens there are on the property, who the ownership is of the property, that we have the correct people signing. We work with the lender to get all the closing documents, get them what they need, and then they, at the end, send everything to us for signing. We work closely trying to make it as smooth and easy as possible, which is hard right now because nothing is smooth and very few are easy.
Yep.
So we work on that very hard. Documents come to us from the lender, from their attorney. So once you get the clear to close, the clock kind of starts on everything else and it goes fast from that point. Right. So they get the clear to close, documents come to us, we get the settlement statement or CD prepared out to everyone. Closing times are set, people come in, we sign them, close them, fund it, and buyers get keys, sellers get money, agents get money, lenders get money, everybody's happy.
That's right. So I want to ask, what would you say is the most challenging part of your job? So with that, what would you say is the most challenging part of the whole process of being the real estate transaction?
Probably just getting the information that we need when we need it from agents and stuff.
Really? Like just getting information?
Just getting information. A lot of times contracts come to us. They don't have the contact information for the buyers or sellers. So we've got to get that. There's new processes now because of all the seller fraud and so forth, that we have to get information from the sellers up front for their IDs to verify that who they are, you know, who they say they are is who they are, rather than waiting
and that can be a
till
challenge
the end.
too, probably.
Yes.
Right. Especially even in a divorce. Who owns the house?
Well,
and that can take a long time because they argue over that sometimes.
Yes.
For months.
They argue. It depends on kind of where they're at in the process of the divorce.
Yes.
And who's signing, the split of the proceeds, whether if it's not, the divorce is not final and it's not in a divorce decree, then the funds are made payable to both parties. Sometimes they have to be given to one of the attorneys for them to hold until the divorce is final.
Right.
Another challenging part that we're seeing a lot of right now are where a seller is deceased. And
right now, that's a challenge.
It is because a lot of properties right now, they're from heirs that have actually had the property for quite a while back. So we have one right now that there's like 27 heirs that are having to sign.
27. And are they all in this country, or are they like all over the world? Or?
They're all in this country.
Okay, good.
That's good.
Probably a little helpful.
One's in prison.
Okay, that's not helpful.
There's all kinds of things you get on the heirs issues. Is you have them where one person thinks that they're entitled to all of it, and if there is not a will, or if there was a will and it's not been probated, then you have to do heirship affidavits, and that's where all the other relatives come into play. So like if it was a parent's house and they were very old, sometimes, their children have passed, so then we're dealing with grandchildren or nieces and nephews. So it makes it very complicated. We give a lot of have to tell people a lot of things they don't want to hear, which is not ever easy. That's a big thing. We've had a lot of issues at the end where walkthroughs are very, very important. Buyers need to see those properties before they close and fund. And we've had some recently that they did not. So after the fact, they call and they're unhappy about either how clean the house is, or repair not being done, or something like that, which has nothing to do with us on either end of that, but we're the one that they call, and the transaction is closed. So you don't have, the sellers are not very inclined to do anything more.
Right. Yeah.
And the big thing is, in real estate, it's, your interpretation of what you think is clean and what the other person thinks is clean.
That's a huge thing. Oh, this
are
is
two
beautiful.
different
This
things.
is fine. Oh, that's not broken. This just needs a little bit of tape. Oh,
Yes. And the sellers are tired. We have ones that come and it's like their stuff multiplies. The movers take longer, which is why you choose really good movers. We have good ones. Euro Moving is the best that I've ever seen.
Shout out to them.
Yes. They show up on time. They take care of it. There's no issues.
Don't break anything.
Data's wonderful. If there is an accident, because accidents happen, they take care of it. But the biggest thing is, a lot of times we're at the end and they're waiting on movers, so the sellers are running behind. Movers are waiting, the buyers, are waiting to close. We're waiting on the lender's funds or funding authorization. Right. So there's just a lot of little pieces that frustrating for me and for everybody. I can't control those things. Yeah. And I like to control things.
Yeah. So would it be easier? So let's say someone's with the property, they die without a will. So they would die intestate.
Correct.
And if they die with a will, they are testate, right? Isn't it technically easier for them to die without a will? Because once they do that, automatically the property is transferred to the heirs, and that's just faster, quicker. Is it easier?
No,
or is it usually
it's not. If there is not a will, or if there is a will and they're not going to probate the will. A probate means that it goes through the courts for them to determine, to fulfill basically the wishes of the deceased person. And they say this is the heirs and this is how everything works. When they don't have a will or they're not going to probate the will, then we have to do heirships, affidavit of heirship. They have to give who all their children is, how many times they've been married. If they have children outside of the current marriage or outside of the marriage, those kids could have an interest in the property. A lot of times people will just assume that it's going to go to the surviving spouse. Again, if there's children outside the marriage, that's not always the case. Right. Or you've got to get them to sign over their interest. So I think it probably is less costly to do the heirship affidavits. But it just depends if there is going to be issues on who's going to be signing and is willing to sign. Right. And if you can find heirs. Yeah. There's times that
how do you even find people? Like, how do you even begin that? Do you just go off of the last name, I guess? Is that how you would start?
We just do detective work. That's my second part of my job is being a detective. We use Ancestry.com. Okay. Things are ran through that because a lot of times people forget siblings or children of siblings and things like that. We pull obituaries. I mean, it's quite a long process. Oh, yeah. There are ones where, a family member, daughter, son has been distanced from the family for a long time. We've had to, in a couple cases, get courts involved. They've had to do the posting, and then basically they say who the ownership is. They've had to go for muniment of title or adverse possession if they've taken care of the property. Right. Sadly, on some of these, when they're selling, there's delinquent taxes. There could be delinquent HOA dues. When you're dealing with heirs, if there's any judgments or liens that come up against them, because it's not their homestead property, those have to be satisfied as well. So you've got to work on a lot of child support. It's very, there's a lot to it. Right. And there's a lot behind the scenes that people really don't realize on some of it.
For sure. can you hand me that Santa hat? I keep looking at my hair, and it's like it won't. I'm just giving up on it. But I should have worn this when we started. Does that look good?
It does.
Okay.
There you go. You look like Santa's helper there.
Thank you. Okay.
He can find you a house.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. He can find your house. Jake can take you tomorrow, today.
Today.
Whenever. He's ready to go.
Day or night.
That's right.
I'm just kidding. Day. I want to ask you another question, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
So, how do you handle disputes or complications during a transaction? So, kind of what you were kind of talking about. How do you handle when people disagree with who really gets the property? I mean, I guess that's really up to the courts, right? You would just go through probate, and a judge would determine.
Yes. So the title company, we are a disinterested third party. So we are not there to represent any side, buyers, sellers. We have to remain neutral.
This is so itchy. Oh my god.
Is it?
It's fine. Just keep going.
So I mean, there are disputes, and you just try to kind of you listen.
Yeah.
We do a lot of listening. And a lot of times, it's pretty cut and dry as far as what we can do. I have 3 boys, so I'm really good at when people keep telling you, when you give them an answer and it's not what they want. So they keep asking you the same question, just a little bit differently. But the answer is still the same. Okay.
Okay. Yes.
They don't like that part. So a lot of times, it takes them a minute to realize that, we're not going to do something that's not outlined in a divorce decree. We're not going to side and take, let one person make a decision on where the money goes. A lot of times they're referred to their attorneys. Most of the time they have an attorney on that.
Yeah.
So we just kind of push it back to them and then hope that,
it all goes
their
over
reasoning
smoothly
comes together.
It doesn't take a long time. That sounds complicated. Jeez.
And and a lot of times there's fees and there's reimbursement that has to happen because you've had one person that's been maybe in the house and maintaining it, and they're owed back money. So I mean, we make sure that all of that is covered.
So
as well,
diffusing all the whatever conflict of interest
exactly
with people, that can also be very complicated. It's a huge people's game, real estate.
Yes.
I have another question for you. So how do you stay updated on changing real estate and escrow regulations? What do you look at?
We have underwriting bulletins that come out daily about different changes, things with underwriting. As Select, we have a wide variety. I think we have like 8, 10 underwriters that we have the option of using to clear certain things in title. And so we utilize that for our underwriters. We also have to take continuing education classes every year. Corporate every year.
Okay.
And and not just for our licensing. We're required to stay updated on all the contracts, the forms.
That's kind of weird because I think we as realtors do it every 2 years is when we do our continuing education.
We have a certain amount of hours we have to take on a regular basis. There's a certain amount for your escrow officer's license, and then we do a lot of hourly ones during the week with different underwriters, with them going over changes in procedures, and then also going over things that they've seen, maybe claims, how to avoid claims, things with taxes, going back to like when it's a property where somebody's been deceased. One of the big things, and I think some of the title companies kind of miss this, and so it becomes a problem later on, is if there's an over 65 or homestead exemption, a disability or veterans exemption, those you have to go back and they have to be removed by the county appraisal district. Then the appraisal district goes back and sends out or goes to the actual taxing authority. So like Harris County Appraisal District removes the exemptions. They give the information to Harris County tax collector, assessor collector, and then you'll get supplemental bills. So you want to make sure if you're buying a property as a buyer that the seller's exemptions have been removed, and that title company, if the bills are not out yet, that they are holding an escrow the estimate, and it's an overestimate of what those back taxes are going to be, because those are the responsibility of the prior owner, meaning now they're heirs.
Right.
And it can be a lot of money.
Yes.
And, after the fact, it's hard to go back, and especially when it is heirs, retrieving any money that is due from those,
Right.
to make it right for the buyer.
Right. So obviously this takes a very special person to do all this, right? So what made you want to get into this industry to begin with?
The people part.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
I mean, I love the agents that I work with. I work with some of the best agents in this area. Yes. Same with lenders. We work with great lenders, and it's important to me because the agents are my friends. We've known each other, a lot of them, for a long time. I want their transactions to go well for all parties, buyers, sellers, the other agent, the lender. So I just want to help make it as smooth and easy as possible. So we go do a lot of closings out of the office. Select
baseball
also
games, church,
that's right.
Whatever.
I've been to prison. I've been to hospitals.
You've been to prison?
I've been to a prison.
Two
prisons to get documents signed by sellers.
Yeah.
Been to hospital like right as somebody went into labor as they were headed to our office for closing. So it was okay. Never mind. I will go to you. So before after she got her epidural, the husband goes, she can sign first. And I'm like, no. She cannot sign first. She needs her epidural first. So she's not dying. Yes. And then we'll sign her. So we just do whatever we need to make it as easy as possible. Select also we have a mobile notary, which is also an escrow officer. And he will go and meet you anytime, day. He does evenings. He does weekends when it's absolutely necessary. And that is at no cost to the buyer or seller. It's pure convenience.
Right. Awesome. Nice. I want to ask you, so what would you say is probably your most memorable transaction? You could choose one, or choose top three maybe. Like one you're like, man, I'm really glad that worked out for us.
There's so many. I mean, way back, buyers and sellers did their closings together. And you never know what's going to come up in a closing.
Yeah.
So I've had some that have had very interesting things come up in a closing. And that buyer and I have worked together now probably 20 years since then. But he got a shock at closing.
20 years, wow.
Probably 20 years,
nice.
Yeah. But he, learned about an issue on the property at closing. And it was a big issue. There was a pond. Somebody had drowned in the pond.
Oh my gosh.
Just told him, but I guess it didn't fall into the disclosure because it wasn't that current seller or anything like that. Right. It all went fine. They were filling in the pond anyway. It was good. That was pretty interesting. I've had sellers that were divorcing that got into it, and he tossed a chair.
What?
That was pretty interesting.
Wow.
Yeah,
interesting.
That was pretty good. He left after that, and he did come back. It did close. It did fund. He did apologize.
Okay,
he did
nice.
Apologize, but yeah, we see all kinds of things.
Yeah.
I've closed with babies on my lap.
Nice.
For that were the buyer and sellers, because that's where they wanted to be at that moment. So we see kind of just anything and everything in closings.
You just do what you have to do. That's right. Okay, so I want to talk about you a little bit now, not just so much the business side.
Okay.
What are you doing for Christmas?
Oh my goodness.
What are you up to?
I have a house full of people coming.
Good.
So my stepson, his family, 2 kids, wife are coming from New Jersey. My sister-in-law, her husband and 2 children are coming from New Jersey here. And RJ will be looking at U of H because we're begging him to go to U of H. And he's applied, so we're just waiting. So crossing our fingers that he gets in. His sister goes to Rutgers. Okay. So that's a big deal there of him coming down here closer to us. My mom will be in town, I think, and my other stepdaughter from Austin, her and her 3 kids will be here. So I think that Christmas Day, which is when we do our Santa stuff this year, normally we do everything Christmas Eve night. doing it Christmas Day this time. We have Santa that comes to our house.
Really? You're gonna have like
The same Santa. He's come for 7 years.
Okay.
7 years.
Nice.
Yeah. But I think there's gonna be like 28 people.
In your house?
29 people in our house.
Where are they all gonna sleep?
All over the place.
Yeah.
All over the place. Even Gianna, one of my children that live here, her and her kids are going to be at our house sleeping for that night because she has a brand new baby. Well, I say brand new. She's 7 months old, adorable. And so she wants Harley to wake up and the other two children to wake up with their cousins and with her aunt and with us. So she said she doesn't care where she sleeps or they sleep. They'll sleep anywhere. So
Awesome.
I have been crazy decorating and cleaning, and now I have to finish planning the food because that's a big deal with Italian families is
Oh,
food.
you're Italian family?
My husband is Italian.
He is? I didn't know that.
Yes, Antonio,
Oh,
Inafio,
I guess so.
Eugenio, Principata.
I don't even know.
So there we go. That's it. So yes, food is very, very important. So we do Italian for our main food.
Mhm.
So we have to get all that done. And no,
That sounds like
I'm not
fun.
making it this year.
No.
Usually
yeah.
we make it. This year with all those people in the house, I'm like, no,
Sounds like a lot of work.
we will order.
It does.
We will order.
So, what do you think you're gonna have? Do you have any New Year resolutions coming up next year? Is there anything you want to see? Is there anything you want to do with whatever you're doing with
I want to travel. I want to travel some.
travel some more? Yeah.
New York is one of my favorite places. His family lives up there, so it's
Oh, that's
easy.
nice.
You know,
Yeah.
love that. Just kind of relax. I want it to be a little bit easier year than what this one was. The last couple years have been tough.
Yes.
It's been work has been
tough.
a lot.
That's a good
a
problem.
lot. It's been a lot. And I mean, I guess we got to rest up because from what I'm getting from everybody, agents, lenders, they are all looking at a very, very positive, productive, successful 2025. And
Yeah.
so
I think
I'm
myself
ready for it.
included. I think I've learned a lot the time I've been with Red Lion with Richard. And I'm really excited for next year, just to take all my learning and just put
That's
it all
it.
into 2025.
I don't want to learn that much in 2025.
You don't. You're a professional.
I don't want to learn. No, but that's how we learn is when there's issues and new things come up.
Oh,
So I told everybody, I'm done learning. I'm learned out. I
Well-
just want to maintain.
we're gonna have some new documents next year,
Yes.
in January 3rd, I believe. So the learning never stops.
I know, but it's
Why do they
frustrating.
Why do they keep changing it? I don't understand. Like, do
I know.
lawyers just like sit in the room and just think like they just read over all of our documents and think like, you know what, we could change this.
I
This
think
is
so
kinda a little
because
bit
I
wrong."
think that some of the people that are making some of the changes are not the ones that are utilizing. They don't have to work based on what is now in place.
I know. It feels like
And-
it just changes so much.
Hmm.
I don't know. I mean, it's
I guess I think
just
that change is
progress, I
good,
guess.
but
Kind of. I mean, I kind of want to just have like kind of set our roots in, so that way we can just get used to what we already have, and not have it change every 6 months or something. But
that would be good.
it's okay, you know. It's all about adapting.
We will survive.
I think
We
we'll
will
be
survive
fine.
it,
I think we'll be
one way or
fine.
the other.
So I have another question for you.
Okay.
If what is one thing you wish people knew about the escrow process? Probably, I would say probably how complicated it is. I don't think people realize how much freaking work you have to do.
Yes. People get very, very frustrated because either they call and I'm either on the phone or I'm in a closing, but that's part of it. If I am not in a closing, I am on the phone or talking to somebody, working out issues, working up things. I wish people understood what everyone's job was within a transaction
Yes,
because it doesn't seem clear. We as a title company, we basically wait on everything to come to us. And lenders in particular, I wish that they would watch how they word things with their buyers.
it's very complicated. A lot of moving parts. I almost feel like we should always just give like some packet or something of the whole process.
And that would be easy. Every loan is a little bit, every transaction's a little bit different,
Yeah, so
even
that's-
within the loan process. One of the really frustrating parts is, they're waiting for the clear to close, or they talk to a loan officer and the loan officer says everything is good, but they're still waiting on an appraisal. Well, then you don't know if everything is good if you're still waiting on an appraisal. They get the clear to close and they think that immediately means they're ready to walk into closing. There's still a process after the clear to close. It still has to go through their closing department. It has to go through the Texas attorneys to have their documents drawn. There's still a process. There's still a process for us to do to work to get the CDs prepared and approved.
Right.
A lot of times people have forgot to send us and or the lender amendments, changing, adding closing cost, changing sales prices, changing all kinds of things. They forget to send it to us.
Right.
Or they forget to send it to the lender. Whenever we get anything like that, unless we can see, and even when we do see that a lender has been copied on it, we automatically send it to them again. So we can make sure that they've received it, because that's one of the holdups when we work it all and then you send it to an agent and the agent goes, it's missing a seller contribution, or it's missing, I'm giving a credit back or something like that.
Right.
Then you have to go back after they've given an approval. So part of it, I just think it's communication. It's setting realistic expectations. No one wants to give bad news or tell people if something's going to be delayed, but there's so many things about the process at the end that you have to know those things. You may not be happy your closing's going to be Tuesday, not Friday, but you've got to make movers changes sometimes. You've got to change utilities. I mean, there's all kinds of things. And just work-wise, if they've changed all their meetings to be off on Friday, and then you tell them on Thursday that it's not going to be till Tuesday, they're mad, and rightly so. That's kind of inconsiderate. Their time is of value as well.
Time is of the essence. Yeah. It's not like buying a car, guys. I know a lot of people. I feel like that's a big misconception. In fact, I actually recently got a question from someone. They said, I always kind of thought like the more expensive the house is, the easier the transaction is. Like, no. Not necessarily.
The sales price really has very little to do with how the transaction goes. Right. I mean, every transaction is as important as the next. And even, with us on refinances and stuff, we treat those the same, because if you're refinancing your home, you're doing it for a reason. You're getting a lower interest rate, you're doing a cash out, you're doing something. It's important to you. And you need it done in the same timely manner, rather than it being pushed as filler business or pushed back. So we work on all of it. I have one amazing investor, and he feels terrible when he gives me these little land deals, and I'm like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because I promise I'm getting you bigger ones. And they'll come, but they all count. And, the buyers are just as important on the little ones as they are on $1 million home.
Right.
So.
It's very complicated, lots of moving parts. So how do you, because this is a very important question, I think. How do you balance your personal life with your work life, with all the stress that you might run into? How do you do that?
I work anytime. So,
right.
I mean,
like, how do you
I have a husband that I explained that to when we were getting married. This is what my work life is.
Yeah.
And you have to understand this as part of all of it. So I have take calls on weekends. I work settlement statements. If I need to close at 6, 7 o'clock at night, I do that. If I need to come in at 7 o'clock to close ones, I do that. Title is not an 8 to 5 job. There's no way. A lot of times I laugh, because agents, when they're getting into it, will go, I can set my own hours. I can control my schedule. And you can't. Because you're actually, not just are you busy during the whole work day, but when your clients get off work at the end of their day, that's when they're calling you for updates and needing answers and things like that.
Yeah, late night phone calls.
That's right. And so we have to be available for that as well, in order for you to give the right answers, or to get with lenders.
I almost feel like you have to be like a therapist in a way. Like
we are at times.
Like, because they're just...
We have to talk a lot of people off the edge.
Yes.
And,
everything's going to be okay. This is the process, and this is how long it's going to probably take. Okay,
Yes. The biggest I said is, it's setting realistic expectations.
Yes.
And, if buyers and sellers really knew what all an agent did behind the scenes to keep a transaction together, they would never go through with the transaction. They would look at things. Oh, that's a sign. Oh no, that's not supposed to happen.
Well, I don't think
it would be so frustrating.
Right. I don't think anyone would say like we're overpaid, which is a huge thing. Realtors don't need 3%. I'm just like, that's just what it costs to do business for us, for you to market.
But they don't realize that it's 3% on the settlement statement. That's not what yours is. That's not what you get.
I think a lot of people just think you sign a couple things, you meet with the buyer or seller, you sign some things and you sign them over. It takes a day,
and you're done. And that is not it.
Like
agents,
like a car, you know.
Yeah,
it's
agents do so much behind the scenes that their buyers and sellers have no idea about. Whether that's just talking them off the edge, you know, working through appraisal issues, getting comps when when a house doesn't appraise out,
or something.
Anything, you know.
Inspection comes out and there's 100 pages worth of things that need to be fixed.
Exactly.
And you see that even on new homes. So it's like, you know.
And people think that when they buy a new home, they don't need an agent. And you need an agent no matter what. Especially, I think, on a new home, because otherwise the builder's going to pay commission. It's figured in there no matter what. You should have representation.
Right. I feel like I've actually had...
And inspections done of new homes.
Right. I've had this conversation with someone, and they were like, you know, you have the right to represent yourself in buying a home or selling your home. But once I show you, I gave this one guy a packet. I showed him like everything that we kind of do, and then once I got to the 1 to 4 contract resale, he's like, oh my gosh, I'm not even gonna read all this. This is, you know, like, yeah, it takes a long time. It's one mistake, you could lose thousands of dollars.
Exactly.
Thousands of dollars. You get sued, or whatever. It's a process and very time consuming.
Well, I had one transaction, and he had used a company that basically, I guess, just kind of put the property in MLS for him. And then I guess they provided him with a contract, but that was it. He paid a one-time fee up front. So we're almost at closing. I send him the settlement statement. He doesn't look at the first one, the prelim. When I send him the final, he goes, oh, this isn't right. His understanding was it was going to be sales price minus payoff, and that was his proceeds. So you have closing costs, you have title policy, you have, you know, a seller owes their portion of the taxes for the current year that they've owned the property. That's either paid at closing, like right now we pay them as a closing. If it's earlier in the year, then the seller credits the buyer. This gentleman didn't realize that, and he was an attorney.
What?
He was an attorney.
Wow.
We get to the settlements or to the home warranty part, and he goes, I didn't agree to this. So I'm having to keep pulling out the contract. Yes, this is where it says you'd give tax prorations. This is where it says you agreed you're paying the owner's policy. This is where it says you're providing them with a home warranty, you know, $500-600, whatever. And he goes, I said, and it's what you signed originally. You know, these aren't amendments that were added later. And his comment was he had docu-signed it, so therefore he did not read it.
Right. That's also another thing I want to say, because I've spoken to other realtors, and realtors will say whenever they send the documents over to them, DocuSign, the digital documents, they'll get an email like 2 minutes later saying, oh, this person signed. And that makes you think like, okay, did you even read it?
And they didn't. And you know, as an agent, not that it would purposely done, but there can be a mistake made.
Yeah.
I mean, you can not check a box or check a box that shouldn't have been checked. You know, same thing with looking at your settlement statements when we send those to the agents and to the buyers and sellers before closing.
Right.
Look at them.
Or even saying like let's say a seller said, oh, you know what, I'll work this out. I'll work this offer out. I'll counter offer at this to the buyers and cover all closing costs. And when you say that, you're saying you're going to cover all closing costs. How do you know how much that's going to be?
That's right.
Would you? How about you say I'll close up to $1,000 in closing costs? But even the smallest little minuscule mistake, as such as that, can cost you tens of thousands of dollars.
A perfect example of that is on the survey portion of the contract. If you check that the seller has an existing survey, it tells the number of days that the seller has to provide the survey and the T47. So the T47 states that there's been no changes or improvements made to the property since that survey was completed. If you don't provide both of those within that time frame, 3 days, 5 days, whatever it says, then that survey is at the cost of the seller.
Yes, and that can cost.
And they don't.
Depending on the property, it
that's
costs
right.
a lot of money.
Well, I mean, a
And what's been
basic
done with
survey
that.
has gone up in price, tremendously. It's just under $600 for a survey now, and
For a
and
basic
more
one.
if it's and more if it's acreage or if you're separating anything out, things like that. But I've had agents that have argued with me, going, no. In that box, it says that the buyer would pay it. Yes, the buyer would pay it as long as you have provided an existing survey in T47 to that buyer, and then if it's not approved by us or by the lender, then it would be at the cost of the buyer. But if you don't provide those things within that time frame, it is the cost of the seller. And we have a lot of agents that have misunderstood that. The same with the HOA
You've
agents.
had realtors that misunderstood
Yes, realtors going,
It's in fine
oh,
print,
I
they
just,
still-
yes.
That's scary. that's scary.
You don't know what a good agent is until you've had a bad agent. Is
That's
what
true.
I always think
That
of.
is 100%
Because
true. Me and Richard say that all the time. You will never know until you actually had a bad one. You're like, and that's where real estate. I think realtors get a bad rep sometimes. And they get a lot of crap thrown their way.
For no reason. I mean, really, for not valid reasons. I mean, there are good ones, there are bad ones. But if the transaction goes the way they're expecting, they think you just did your job. They don't see what all it took to do it.
Some people will blame the realtor when their loan doesn't get approved. It's like,
and you have
how's that
nothing
gonna
at all to do
that's
with
your
that.
fault, and that's not technically the bank's fault, but that's
It just is what it is. If you don't qualify based upon whether it's income, credit,
you're going through divorce,
property
or whatever,
condition, whatever
debt.
it is, the agent can't control that. I mean, you can't control
Don't
somebody
shoot
getting.
the messenger, guys.
That's right. It's not their fault.
Please.
And listen to your lender. So when they tell you they need something, get it to them quickly.
Yes, quickly.
Quickly. So that's why it's important to use good lenders, a good agent,
And a good team with that
yes.
agent. That's also another thing, is having a good team behind them,
That's
not
right.
just them. Other than that,
That's
do you
true.
have any final thoughts? Any final questions? I'm so, I feel like this was good. I feel like I did a good job.
You did a good job. He made me come in here.
Yeah, I did.
He begged me. He
Well, 'cause I
he
got a
come
text-
to me with a sad face, sad
Yeah,
face.
I
When
did.
I'm very busy, I had people lined up in my office talking to me, and he comes up to my door with a sad face. Can you please?
Yeah.
And I did, because it was Jake. Otherwise, I would have said no,
That's right.
because I don't like doing this part.
I think you did good. I think I succeeded. Richard will be back hopefully next week. He's, a little sick, and Priscilla had to go through surgery.
Yes,
which was
she's hopefully going to heal
recovering.
very, very fast and be back, but she is in pain from her shoulder surgery she had to have. So I don't think it was, I think she was hoping it would be much easier than what it was.
She was excited, but I guess she overestimated it
Yes.
or underestimated it. Yeah, thank you so
And
much.
at
for
Christmas,
doing
the
it.
worst possible time to be sick. But everybody's
Yes,
sick right now.
Everyone's sick. I felt
Everybody's
a little sick.
And Richard's never sick. He
Oh,
has
not
his
no.
vitamin regimen and his workout, and he is never sick. So when Jake told me he was sick today, I knew that. I mean, I'm thinking I need to take him soup or something. He needs something.
Yeah. Oh, Estrada. Thank you for watching the stream here. I see your comment here. Thank you for tuning in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I don't have any final thoughts. I'll let you get back into your day here.
Perfect.
You
I'll
can
go back and
enjoy your
do my
weekend.
3 closings I think I have left for today, and
Alrighty. Perfect.
getting ready for next week.
If they want to reach out to you, what's the best way they can do that?
You can email me,
If you have
call
any
me.
questions?
Anything at all. I help people, whether it's a transaction that I am working on or that's closing here or closing somewhere else. And I will help the other title company, because sometimes, I've ran into something that maybe they haven't. And so just kind of bouncing ideas off of each other, it helps all of us. So
Yes,
I'm
definitely.
always here to help. If it's agents and they need power of attorneys, after hours, weekends, any of that. We also do remote online closings. More for sellers than for buyers. A lot of buyers, lenders don't allow the remote online.
They don't allow.
They don't allow the remote online.
Okay.
I don't know why.
It's easier. Whatever.
It's easier, but it also comes with a risk. I mean, so it's all title work, and title insurance is all about controlling the risk. And
Being in person, I guess. That's right. Okay, I can understand that.
Yeah.
For sure.
so usually that's just if people are out of the country,
Oh, okay,
and that's
right.
what it is. So
Right. Cool. Alrighty. Well,
all
thank
right.
you so much for coming on the
Thank you.
podcast.
Happy
Happy
holidays.
holidays, guys. We'll probably see you next week if we can. We'd like to just kind of have the next one be we all just kind of talk about our year and all that, you know. But yeah, thank you so much for watching the Weekly Social. We'll see y'all later.
Thank you.
Go here.